I just want to formally welcome you to this Ocean Carbon and Biogeochemistry, or OCB, program activity. OCB is a coordinating body that focuses on activities relevant to carbon cycle science in the ocean. And we are really about forming a network we support a very large network internationally, actually, of scientists who work across disciplines to examine the ocean's role in the global carbon cycle, looking at changing biogeochemistry and marine ecosystem function and marine ecosystem change. And this community has been, the OCB community has been really heavily involved in pushing the Arctic Colors campaign forward. The planning for this campaign has been ongoing for a few years now, and this is an activity that was selected by OCB in the last activity solicitation, and it's really focused on synthesis. So we're going to spend the next 3 days looking first at field observations, and then we'll be looking at modeling capabilities, and we'll be then looking at satellite remote sensing capabilities and how we can gather what we know to set the stage for moving forward with a large-scale field campaign. So we are really excited to be supporting this activity, and I'm going to hand it off to the organizers. I believe, Maria, you'll be speaking first, leading us off, and then we'll proceed with the remainder of the talks.
Yes, thank you so much, Heather. Let me share my screen. Great, can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Great, so hello everyone. Welcome to this open virtual community meeting. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Maria Tzortziou, professor at City University of New York and one of the lead PIs for the Arctic Color Scoping Study. Co-organizers of this 3-day meeting are Antonio Manino at NASA Goddard, Patty Matre at Bigelow, Peter Hearns at UC Davis, and Robin Spencer and Ann Kellerman at Florida State University. Now, this meeting is being organized as a pre-Arctic Colors data synthesis activity, and we're really, really grateful to NASA's Ocean Biology and Biogeochemistry program and the Ocean Carbon Biogeochemistry Project Office for sponsoring this activity. Heather, many, many thanks for your help, not only for sponsoring this activity, but also for supporting Arctic Colors meetings and workshops over the past more than 6 years. So what is Arctic Colors? Arctic Colors is a field campaign scoping study selected by NASA's Ocean Biology and Biogeochemistry program to design an interdisciplinary oceanographic field campaign program that addresses high priority science questions related to land, ice, ocean interactions in the rapidly changing coastal Arctic. You see here the annual Arctic sea ice minimum area. 2020 was the second lowest on record. The 2021 minimum just a month ago on September 15th was not as bad. It was the 12th lowest in the nearly 43-year satellite record. But the last 15 years have been the lowest 15 sea ice extents in the satellite record. So with this group, I don't need to try to convince you why more measurements are needed in the coastal Arctic. We all know the land and the ocean in the Arctic are changing rapidly, with important consequences, of course, for Arctic wildlife and human populations. On land, permafrost is thawing. In rivers and lakes, ice-free periods are getting longer. River flows are changing. The Arctic Ocean is warming, is freshening. Sea ice coverage is declining, but also sea ice seasonality is changing. Primary productivity is changing, and we're seeing an expansion of harmful algal blooms within the Arctic. Now, there have been ground-based monitoring programs focusing on measuring these changes. The problem is that most of these monitoring programs have been focusing either on land or the ocean primarily. And as we will be discussing today, we still know very little about processes, interactions, exchanges, and feedbacks across the Arctic land-ocean continuum, and the impacts of these processes and feedbacks and exchanges on ocean salinity or primary production, biodiversity, sea ice formation, and larger scale ocean circulation patterns. So what makes things more complicated is that the Arctic coast is difficult to access. So existing data sets have very limited spatial and temporal coverage. Satellite remote sensing can provide a different perspective, an integrated coastal Arctic system perspective that we cannot get with surface measurements alone. So this perspective is partly what has driven Arctic Colors, based largely on remote sensing observations from space, but also integrating measurements from other platforms, as well as models. Arctic Colors aims to quantify the coupled biogeochemical ecological response of the Arctic nearshore system to changing terrestrial fluxes and ice conditions. And we want to do this in the context of environmental short-term change, but also longer-term climate change. Now, our community has been working on the Arctic Colors concept since 2014. Over these years, we have developed a science plan with input from the broader community, some of you here with us today. We worked on outreach materials and we built a science team with international participation that has contributed significantly to identify high priority science questions and also try to link to other field activities in the Arctic. And you will see some of this information, some of these activities with the first presentation today by Anne Kellerman. As NASA prepares for this large-scale field campaign, an important step is to identify and characterize existing field data sets, field observations, as well as modeling activities and remote sensing capabilities that could be applied to the coastal Arctic area that is relevant to the Arctic Color study domain. So the main objective of this 3-day meeting today in the next couple of days is to introduce this phase 1, this pre-Arctic Colors data synthesis activity, and as a community start discussing how we can share this information, how we can share information on past, current, and planned field campaigns, as well as modeling and remote sensing activities. In early 2022, we would also like to have what we think would be a hybrid workshop where anyone interested in sharing and contributing existing data sets, models, and algorithms for the Arctic Color study would participate in this data synthesis and combine data analysis. We have an opportunity to participate in writing of overview manuscripts and other reports. So this virtual meeting today is really a very important step toward the development of the Arctic Colors implementation plan, really, and eventually the Arctic Colors field campaign itself. Now, a campaign of the scale of Arctic Colors requires a multidisciplinary, multi-method, integrative observational approach. As we describe in the science plan, there is a need for a diverse array of measurements, measurement approaches, so that we can have year-round observations and sampling. Satellite remote sensing, of course, is central here, and there will be a range of sensors we could use, not only ocean color, but multidisciplinary data to address the Arctic Colors science objectives. And also coupled land ocean ice models are critical here for studying biological and biogeochemical processes, for resolving observed seasonality, for resolving variability in terms of spatial variability, but also assessing relative importance of different processes, as well as impacts on ecosystems. So this synthesis needs to happen across these data sets, for field observations and in situ data, as well as modeling frameworks and remote sensing aircraft and satellite algorithms. This is why we're having a 3-day meeting. Day 1 of this workshop will focus on relevant field measurements, including large field campaign programs. Day 2 will focus on modeling activities with presentations highlighting some major modeling efforts in the coastal Arctic. And day 3 will focus on remote sensing, discussing progress and challenges, as well as what are some of the most critical needs in terms of satellite and airborne remote sensing algorithm development, data records, and data products. Today, we will start with an introduction to Arctic colors and discussion of relevant large field campaign programs and collected field observations. Specifically, we will have some updates from the Arctic Great Rivers Observatory, the Beaufort Lagoon Ecosystem Long-Term Ecological Research Site that was funded by NSF in 2017 to study lagoons and other aquatic systems along the northern Alaskan Arctic coast, as well as the Malina and Minatariuk projects. After a short QA session for all speakers, we will move to a 45-minute discussion in breakout groups. Each breakout group will be addressing the same questions, but we just wanted to have the discussion in smaller groups to facilitate discussion and exchange of ideas. And we will then come back to the main room to report on the subgroup discussions and discuss as a whole group. Now, as you're thinking about Arctic colors and potentially participating in the future in this major field campaign, please feel free to contact any of us, any of the scoping study PIs and organizers of this meeting. Our emails are here, or even better, feel free to contact the NASA OBB program scientist Laura Lorenzoni to learn more about Arctic colors. So let's start. Our first presentation will be an introduction to Arctic colors and the OCB data synthesis activity by Anne Kellerman, postdoctoral research at Florida State University. Anne, the floor is yours.